if? What if you get a free movie ticket? What if you trip and fall? What if you win the lottery? In your day-to-day life, you will undoubtedly feel the need to talk about situations or events that haven't happened but are entirely possible. These are the what-ifs of the world. You may be surprised to learn that there are many sentence structures that you can use in these instances. You will begin to learn these today. In your journey through this course, you have already been equipped with the skills to produce a number of sentence structures that will make your writing stand out. You've learned about simple, complex, and compound sentences. You've learned about active and passive voice. You've learned about direct and reported speech. And there are many more useful sentence constructions that I cannot wait to share with you. If you've made it this far in this course, it means that you are committed to reaching your highest potential. It means that you are aiming high. So you can pat yourself on the back because you have worked very hard to get here. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use the Type 0 conditional sentence structure. You'll also be able to use the Type 1 conditional sentence structure. You will also be able to understand the appropriate contexts in which each of the above is used. Now, before we get into today's content, let's talk about your lesson challenge from Module 2, Lesson 8. I challenged you to replace all your usual viewing content with English content. For example, start watching a new English series, or if you are already watching one, turn off the subtitles. This challenge was designed to help you to immerse yourself in the world of English, because the best way to learn is by doing. So, how did the challenge go? Did you find it less challenging than last time? Could you extract the meaning of spoken language more easily? Are you starting to get used to different accents and idiosyncrasies? Can you pick up on and understand connected speech? Are you going to continue listening to English content? I hope your answer to that last question is yes, because much like reading, listening practice also requires you to fully immerse yourself in the world of English if you want to see quick results and improvement. Is a hypothetical situation. Well, Collins Dictionary says that if something is hypothetical, it is based on possible ideas or situations rather than actual ones. Essentially, hypothetical situations are the what-ifs of the world. Have you ever heard someone use the phrase, "what if"? It's a very common way to talk about hypothetical situations and possibilities. It's a phrase that helps people imagine what could potentially happen in the future. I'll show you some examples of situations in which the phrase "what if" is used. What if you've planned a camping trip for the weekend, but it ends up raining? Would you cancel it? Would you risk it and go anyway? This would, of course, depend on how adventurous you are, but I think I would be inclined to cancel the trip. Perhaps you are more adventurous than me. Now, what if you win the lottery? Is this something you've considered before? Winning the lottery is a hypothetical situation. It hasn't necessarily happened to you, but it's possible that it could happen in the future. What would you do? Would you start a charity? Would you travel the world? Would you perhaps buy a house? These are things you can imagine because winning the lottery is a hypothetical situation. Here's a slightly less exciting hypothetical situation. What if you put water in the freezer? I'm sure you already know what happens. Putting water in the freezer will cause it to freeze. So, hypothetical situations are possible events. They haven't happened yet, and they might never happen at all. But sometimes we want to talk about possibilities. In this lesson, you'll learn how to talk about possibilities using the correct sentence structures. Now, it's important to be aware that there's not just one structure that we use to talk about hypothetical situations. Each type of hypothetical situation has a different sentence structure. These sentence structures are called conditionals. There are 5 types of conditional sentence structures. Type 0 conditional, Type 1 conditional, Type 2 conditional, Type 3 conditional, and mixed conditional. But we won't be looking at all of those today. We will dedicate the next few lessons to learning about these sentence structures gradually. You will be eased into it, and you will be given the opportunity to digest the information so that you can really consolidate it in your mind and ultimately absorb it more easily. But today you will learn the following: Type 0 conditional and Type 1 conditional. But before we dive into these conditionals, let's go over the concepts of condition and result, because you'll have to have a firm understanding of these concepts to understand the way the conditional sentences are structured. Let's start with condition. The condition is what influences a situation. It has the power to change or alter an event. A condition causes something else to happen. For example, putting water in the freezer will cause it to freeze. Putting water in the freezer is the condition because it influences the situation and it causes something else to happen. The action causes the water to freeze. Another example is rain might cause you to cancel your camping trip. Rain is the condition because it also influences the situation. It has the power to determine whether or not you will cancel your camping trip. Rain will cause something else to happen. So, it's a condition. Now, let's talk about results. A result is the consequence of a condition. In other words, it's the outcome. For example, putting water in a freezer will cause it to freeze. Freeze is the result. It is the consequence of putting water in the freezer. It's the outcome. Another example is rain might cause you to cancel your camping trip. Cancelling your camping trip is the result. It is the consequence of rain. It's the outcome. It's what might happen if the condition is true. Now let's test whether you have a firm understanding of the concepts condition and result. In the following sentences, what's the condition and what is the result? Sam eats too much dairy. His stomach hurts. I'll give you a moment to think about it. The condition is Sam eats too much dairy. It's the causing factor. It influences the situation and has power over the outcome. The result is his stomach hurts. It's the consequence or outcome of eating too much dairy. Did you get it right? If you did, well done. If not, the concepts will likely become clearer to you as we continue with this lesson. On that note, let's get into our first core topic for this lesson, type 0 conditional. This is the first type of conditional sentence you will be learning about. Let's talk about when to use type 0 conditionals. We use type 0 conditional sentences when the result is a certain known fact. For example, what happens when we put water in the freezer? We know that water will freeze. It's a known fact. There's no doubt about it. Now, what happens when we drop glass? We know that it will break. This is also a known fact. Glass breaks when it is dropped on the floor. It is inevitable. So, let's talk about freezing water. You put water in the freezer. Is this the condition or the result? Think about it. Is it causing something to happen? Or is it the outcome of something? It's causing something else to happen. It's the condition. So, of course, that means that it freezes is the result, because it is the outcome of putting water in the freezer. Now, let's talk about the tenses. What tense is the condition? You put water in the freezer. It's in present simple tense. What tense is the result? It freezes. It's also present simple tense. So let's make a sentence. Remember that this sentence will be type 0 conditional because it refers to an outcome that is a known fact. So you're about to learn the type 0 conditional sentence structure. So, first things first, we need to add a word that shows that the result depends on the condition. We need this word to show that the condition has influence over the result. Do you know what word does this? I'll give you a clue. The word is in the phrase, what if? It's the word if. We always put the word if before the condition. Do you know what else we need to add to the sentence? A comma. The word if shows that X depends on Y. In other words, that the result depends on the condition. The comma separates the two clauses. It's important to note that the tense remains present simple for both clauses. That is the rule for the type 0 conditional. Both parts of the sentence are in present simple tense. So from this we can come up with a formula to make it simpler to construct a type 0 conditional sentence. A formula you can use is if plus condition in present simple tense plus the comma plus the result in present simple tense. For example, if you put your hand in boiling water, you will burn yourself. We've got the word if, the condition in present simple tense, the comma, and the result in present simple tense. So let's take some time to practice the type 0 conditional sentence. What if you warm up ice cream? Answer the question using the 0 conditional sentence type. I'll give you some time to think about it. A possible correct answer is, if you warm up ice cream, it melts. The condition is warming up ice cream, and the result is that it melts. Let's see if we can build another sentence. What if you work too much? Again, use the type 0 conditional sentence structure to answer the question. I'll give you some time to think about it. A possible correct answer is, if you work too much, you get tired. Of course, getting tired is not the only possible result of working too much, so you might have come up with something different. But did you get the structure right? We've got the word if at the beginning of the sentence, we've got both clauses in present simple tense, plus we have the comma in between the two clauses. Let's try that one more time. What if it's hot? Is there anything you always do without a doubt when it's hot? Think about it. A possible correct answer is, if it's hot, I drink lots of water. Did you get it right? The condition is the hot weather, and the result is that I drink lots of water. We added the word if as well as the comma in between the clauses. Both the clauses are in present simple tense. Let's try that one more time. What if you warm up water at 100 degrees Celsius? Use the type 0 conditional to answer. I'll let you think about it. The correct answer is, if you warm up water at 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Did you get it right? The condition is warming up the water, and the result is that the water boils. We added the word if as well as the comma in between the clauses. Both the clauses are in present simple tense. Now, you should know that there is another form of the type 1 conditional that you can use if you want to. Now, don't worry about it too much for now. Just focus on mastering the format you just learned first. But if you are up for the challenge, let's quickly look at another form that the type 0 conditional sentence can be used in. Look at the following sentence. Water freezes if you put it in the freezer. What happened to the sentence? It still fulfills the purpose of the 0 conditional sentence, and it's still grammatical. Can you see what has changed about the sentence? Firstly, the condition and the result changed places. Furthermore, the comma is now gone. Since the two clauses changed places, the comma is no longer necessary because the word if now separates the clauses. If moved to the middle of the sentence. Well, actually, it didn't quite move. The word if will always come before the condition. Lastly, the use of the pronoun it shifts. You'll notice that we now say water freezes if you put it in the freezer. That's just because the noun water was mentioned in the beginning of the sentence, so now you can use the pronoun it to refer to it. In Module 1, you learned all about pronouns and how you can use them to avoid sounding repetitive, so feel free to refer back to that. Now, if this is a bit of an information overload for you, you can always just stick to the first form of 0 conditional for now. Once you have mastered it, you can then move on to the other form you just learned. It doesn't matter which form you use, they both have the same meaning and they are both grammatical. On that note, remember that all the summary notes and slides are available in your toolkit and would be really worthwhile to keep as a resource at your fingertips beyond this course. But no sneak peeks. The lesson notes will only become available after you have attended your class or caught up with the lessons. These will also help you to prepare for your first assignment. Now, coming up in lesson 2, you will learn how to talk about some more types of possibilities. As you know, there are still a few conditional sentence structures that we will be covering in the next few lessons. In lesson 2, we will look at type 2 and type 3 conditionals. There are many more what ifs to talk about, so I hope you are looking forward to the next lesson. That brings us to our next core topic for this lesson, type 1 conditional. This is the last conditional sentence structure you'll be learning in this lesson. So, when do we use type 1 conditionals? We use type 1 conditionals when the condition is possible and when the result is likely. The result isn't necessarily a known fact as with zero conditionals. However, it is likely that the condition will lead to a specific outcome. For example, what happens if you've planned a camping trip but it ends up raining that weekend? You are likely to cancel the camping trip. Note how I say you are likely to cancel it, because it's not a definite fact. Maybe you will choose to brave it and go camping in the rain anyway. But in most cases, the most likely outcome would be to cancel the camping trip. So let's make a sentence with this camping trip scenario. It rains. Is that the condition or the result? Is it causing something to happen or is it the outcome of something? It's causing something else to happen. It's the condition. So, of course, I will cancel my camping trip must be the result. It is the outcome or consequence of the rain. Of course, we do need to talk about tenses now. In what tense is it rains? It's in present simple tense. What about I will cancel my camping trip? What tense is that? It's in future simple tense. That is the rule for type 1 conditionals. The condition is always in present simple tense and the result is always in future simple tense. Now, let's make a sentence. This sentence will be the type 1 conditional sentence structure. Do you remember what word we need to add to the sentence before the condition? It's the word if. What do we add next? We need to add the comma. Remember that if shows that X depends on Y. The comma separates the clauses. And the condition is in present simple, whereas the result is in future simple. Like I mentioned before, in type 1 conditional sentences, this will always be the case. Here is a formula you can use for the type 1 conditional sentences. If plus condition in present simple tense plus the comma plus the result in future simple tense. For example, if I pass my exam, I will throw a party. We've got the word if, the condition in present simple tense, the comma, and the result in future simple tense. Now, of course, it's time to practice. What if you are ill next week? Answer the question using the type 1 conditional sentence structure. I'll give you some time to think about it. A possible correct answer is, if I am ill next week, I will stay at home. Staying at home isn't the only possible result, so don't worry if you came up with something different, as long as you got the sentence structure right. Let's make another sentence. What if it's sunny this weekend? Use the type 1 conditional sentence structure. Take a moment to construct an answer. Here's a possible answer. If it's sunny this weekend, I will go to the beach. Let's practice one last time for today. What if you forget to buy groceries after work? Use the type 1 conditional structure. I'll give you a moment. Here's a possible answer. If I forget to buy groceries after work, I will order takeaways. As with type 0 conditional, there is another form you can use if you wish to. But like I said before, you should focus on mastering the structure you just learned before you try to master this. This is just for those of you who would like a challenge. Here's the other form. I will cancel my camping trip if it rains. Take a moment to look at the sentence. What happened to the sentence? What changed? Well, firstly, the condition and result changed places. Plus, the comma is gone. If is no longer at the beginning of the sentence, and that is of course because the word if needs to go before the condition. Lastly, the use of the pronoun it shifts. So let's quickly have a recap of what you learned today. When do we use the type 0 conditional sentence structure? We use it when the result is a known fact. Do you remember what the formula for type 0 conditional is? It's if plus condition in present simple tense plus the comma plus the result in present simple tense. Now let's talk about type 1 conditional. When do we use the type 1 conditional sentence structure? We use it when the condition is possible and the result is likely. What is the formula? The formula is if plus condition in present simple tense plus the comma plus the result in future simple tense. Can you see that the only difference between type 0 and type 1 conditional is that in type 0 conditional, the result is in present simple tense, whereas in type 1 conditional, the result is in future simple tense. Remember that the word if always goes before the condition. I would like to challenge you to write appropriate conditional sentences to answer the following questions. What if you don't drink enough water? What if you study hard for your test next week? This challenge will help you to practice using 0 and first conditional sentences. You will test your understanding of the appropriate situations in which to use each sentence type.